Hello and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. We have had over 400 women grace the stage here on this podcast. This platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Andrea Page. Andrea is a neuroscientist, holistic health practitioner, and cancer coach who is deeply devoted to empowering others in their health and wellness journey. She offers a unique perspective, having worked in healthcare for over a decade, primarily in radiation oncology. 8 years ago, Andrea left her job, sold everything, moved to the jungle with her family, and started a holistic oncology business. Oh my gosh. His coaching combines the wisdom of naturopathy, neuroscience and frequency, body, mind, and energy. Ancient practices merged with future technology. She believes healing from a chronic illness requires a multi-pronged approach, yes, that takes into account the many realms and facets of an individual for complete holistic regeneration and an expansion of consciousness. Welcome, lady.
Hi, Sabrina.
Girl, what a story.
It's pretty epic.
You moved
an epic life.
Jungle.
Yeah. Well, we originally came to Costa Rica for 3 months to scope it out, and that was in 2015, and we're still hanging out here.
Wow. What was that conversation like? How did that even, you're just like flipping through Better Homes and Magazine on the bed, watching some, what was in 2015?
So, well, when I met my partner in 2009, he was like, I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm moving to Costa Rica. And I was like, no problem. I'm got work papers to go work in New Zealand. And so it was on his radar then. And he just kept like talking about it. And in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, right. You know, I had this good job. I made a lot of money. It was like lots of stability and benefits and all the things. And he just sort of like chipped away. And then I had my first son. And then, you know, you start to balance like work and life and daycare and all the things. And then I had another son 22 months later. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready. So yeah, I mean, and at the time there was like transitions happening with my job as well, where I wasn't really feeling aligned with what I was doing. I knew that there was a different way of how I wanted to be of service. So it all kind of culminated in this. There were like some things that happened at work, boom, boom, boom. And I just like one day I was at lunchtime, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I went into my boss's office and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm resigning. And he was like, why don't you just take some time off? So originally I took like a 1-year sabbatical, but then after the year, I was like, we had come to Costa Rica and we had reinvented ourselves. So, and then I transitioned.
Wow. So with children.
Yeah. Actually, we sold everything in Canada and we bought a minivan and some camping gear. And we went down the west coast of the US. We camped literally with a 2 and a 4-year-old in a tent across America. We went down the western coast and then we went all the way across the southern US to Florida. And then we left all of our gear there and we came to Central America to scope it out for 3 months. And as I said, then we just stayed.
So cool. What is needed financially to do that? I always wonder that. Like, do you actually come up with a plan and you like save enough to make sure you're pricing out campsites? Like, what's the journey for that, for somebody who wants to do that?
I mean, I always think it's best to have some form of income. At the time when I quit my job, my partner, we had a business that we owned together. And so he was building that. And it was like, at that moment when I quit my job, our business was making enough to sustain our lifestyle. So it was a bricks and mortar business, but we had passive income coming in from that. So, and especially like I've seen so many people come to Costa Rica thinking they're going to come to paradise and just like figure out how to make money. But it's actually like pretty expensive to live in Costa Rica. So, it's good to have some form of income if you can work online or have some passive income coming in. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I actually thought that it wasn't expensive to live in Costa Rica. It is. It's like,
it's pretty comparable with the US, if not more, depending on where you are.
No kidding. Yeah, I guess if you want to live in a location that has like Wi-Fi to sustain, you have to live in like a halfway.
I mean, there's like fiber optic here. We have like 200 megabits per second, which is like faster than some places in the US. So, but that wasn't always the case. When we came 8 years ago, it was 2 megabits per second. And so we all had to like take turns doing shit, It's like if I had a client call, then the kids had to be like off technology and we just like weave our day that way. But now we can all do our thing at one time.
Wow. So freaking cool. Well, that is awesome. I want to ask, I don't know if that's your story or not, because that's a pretty intense story. But this podcast is all about storytelling. We love to hear stories. We love to hear inspiration and darkness to light and pivots and challenges. So is that your story or is there another story?
I mean, there's a lot of stories in there. First and foremost, when I left my job, that was something that I studied for a long time to go through and have a profession in that. And so when I transitioned and we came to Costa Rica, it seemed like, oh yeah, this is amazing and an amazing lifestyle. And then it was like the reality hit of like, oh, I don't have a job anymore. And that was like a big part of my identity. And now I'm a full-time mom. And so there were a lot of like transitions. And then never mind, you're in like a developing country with a different language and a different lifestyle. And so there was, and the transition to entrepreneurship. I mean, when you go through medical training, it's very much in the box, right? And you are an employee. And so there was a lot of learning and growth in terms of pivoting to becoming an entrepreneur, a grieving process that goes through that kind of like a death and rebirth in terms of like reinventing yourself. And then there's like the whole jungle piece, which is, it will bring up all your darkness and all of your shadows and say like, here, you got to deal with it, whether you want to or not. And so I've gone through a lot of like dark nights of the soul since I've been in the jungle. And really, this is what you were talking about in terms of like expanded consciousness that's the gift of coming here, of unlearning, the 3D matrix and shifting into a different kind of lifestyle, different vibration of like, that's such a like an easy transition. There's a lot of like messiness that happens in there. So
yeah. Wow.
It's like many stories woven together.
Definitely. Wow. How has the transition been for your children? They love it?
I mean, this is home for them. We came here when they were 2 and 4. So now they're 10 and 12. It's really all they know. I mean, they live like an awesome life. They don't wear shoes. They wear like maybe just shorts now. Like clothing is optional for most of their life. They're completely immersed in nature. So I mean, I don't know that they fully appreciate it because it's, there's like not a lot of contrast for them to compare it to. But yeah, I mean, they love it.
That is awesome. When did you, or I shouldn't say when, I should say, do you, or are you immersed in the world of personal development?
Yes. Immersion, integration, always. Because I mean, personally for myself, because I'm always on a journey of expansion. And it's a big part of the work that I do. Like I'm a holistic health professional and we do a lot of, lifestyle things when I work with people. We address nutrition and stress and lifestyle, but a lot of it is like really what's happening in our mind and reconnecting to our emotions and really shifting to a different level of consciousness because most people want change and transformation, but you can't do that in the same state. Right. Yeah. And so, that's like most of the work that I do with people is personal development. And a big part of what I've transitioned to in the last 2 years, especially, is working with frequency medicine and then also with psychedelics and doing microdosing. because it's a really beautiful way to have subtle shifts over time that have a massive transformation in consciousness.
Were you introduced to that there in Costa Rica as far as the psychedelics?
Yeah. I think there's like 5 shaman that live in like a 1 mile radius from me. So we are blessed with like lots of opportunity for ceremonies and different kind of events that happen. Most people that are in this area, like it's a bit of a magnet for attracting people that are seeking, and
awesome.
are on this journey of expansion as well.
What does your journey look like mentally as far as pivoting from books, medical books, American medical books, to this holistic? How did that happen? What did that look like?
I mean, that started pretty early on in my career, because when you're treating people with cancer, the medical system is really interesting. They have it designed such that when you're actively treating somebody, you can access their file. But once you're done treating them, when they're no longer your patient, you're actually not allowed to look at their file at all. And that is like by design, because they don't want you to know what's happening once you finish treating them. And so I would say like around the 2 to 3 year mark within my career, you start to see people coming back. Right. And you wonder, like, what have they been up to? And then when they come back, then you start reading what's been happening in their life the last 2 to 3 years. And it's really them going through a barrage of treatments, experimental stuff, maybe being told there's not much more we can do for you. And so at that moment in my career, and I've always been kind of naturally based, like I took care of myself. I learned about nutrition, I exercise, I meditate, I do all the things. And so it felt like disconnected working in mainstream medicine, because they don't really address the holistic aspect of a person. They don't even really ask what's going on in their life. It's like, oh, you have this diagnosis, this is the treatment that you get. Right. And so I would ask my patients all sorts of things, how is your stress? Do you have support at home? What kind of things are you doing? And I was constantly reprimanded by saying, like, you talk too much to the patients, like, just treat them, like, move along. You're just like, that's for like the psychologist, or that's for the nutritionist, if I asked about their nutrition. And so it was feeling really disconnected for me. And I knew that there was like a different way that I wanted to be of service. I knew there was a different way that we could at least support cancer treatments. And so pretty early on in my career, I started studying, I started reading books, I took some certifications, so that when I did quit my job, like I was already ready to pivot. I already had the next thing lined up. It was like percolating in my mind in terms of my holistic oncology business that I wanted to pursue.
Was that scary?
Yeah, it was totally scary. I mean, when you make 6 figures, it was like, oh, I'm going to quit. And then, and then you're like, you just think you're going to hang your shingle and find a bunch of clients. It's like, doesn't actually work that way.
They don't tell you that though.
No.
Think that once you create the program and you just put it up on a website, that people will just come and knock in. Yeah. And that's not a thing. You have to open up. You have to talk about it. You have to get on podcasts. You have to share the news of what you've created. That is awesome. What is frequency therapy, by the way?
So I work with a type of bioresonance that can tap into somebody. So we all have an energy field to us. You've heard of maybe like an auric field or an information field. And this is something that's measurable. Science can measure it. It extends up to 6 feet around us in all directions. And so you can actually get a lot of information about a person, of what's happening for them energetically. And so the device that I use is able to read into somebody's information field with their permission and detect any imbalances. And then the second part of that is you can actually apply frequency. So it'll detect like particular wavelength frequency imbalances, and you can apply those frequencies to bring the body back into harmony. So it works amazing. Like it detects everything from pathogens, like if you have parasites, if you're feeling really stressed out, like it picks up on a lot of physical stuff. And then it also can detect, how you're doing mentally and emotionally. And being able to vibrate, the device that I use has like 10 million different frequencies. So depending on what you got going on, it'll and it will tell you like some of the analyses that you do, it'll say like, you're feeling really angry and annoyed, and it'll pick up these things. Like it's a lot of what's happening on the subconscious level, and it'll just like put it right in your face. So, and the beautiful thing is you can like acknowledge it, right? Because we can't change if we don't have the awareness. And so when you have the awareness, then you can shift that, and you can also vibrate the frequencies to be really super supportive.
No kidding.
And in terms of cancer, because of my experience in conventional cancer care, which is incredibly disempowering, I am like, my mission, my atonement is like all about empowerment. Like, how do we empower somebody so that they can really feel that they can heal themselves, right? Because I'm just a guide, I'm just supporting. It's not me like, curing anybody, because we don't do that, but it's like really helping them develop the tools and the awareness within themselves. And the beautiful thing about having frequency devices, they can have their own. So it's something that they can do every single day for themselves, right? And so they start to become aware of like what's happening at them, what's happening physically, what's happening mentally, what's happening emotionally, and then being able to select a frequency program to support that. So quite often, especially when somebody's like post-treatment, they're just waiting. They're like waiting for 3 months to go back for their follow-up appointment. And mainstream medicine is also not really good at like giving them preventative medicine. So it's like, hey, how about you change your nutrition? Or maybe you should take up like some mindfulness and meditation. And so that's kind of like where I come in to fill in all those gaps through a variety of different like tools and strategies.
What has been your, I guess, your journey as far as I feel like the conversations with your clients had to really shift. From like an office, like a doctor's office to not. Did you was there some hesitancy there? Or did you just like jam it right in? You're just like, yes, let's talk about all the things, nutrition and.
Well, it's kind of been an evolution. So when I first started out, it was like, let's give you this nutrition prescription. So it was like, it was kind of still in that medical model because that was my training. Yeah. And so I just like took that blueprint and tried to like apply it in a holistic realm. So it was like, let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at your nutrition. Like, let's look at your stress. And so I was probably like really awkward at the beginning with people because I was still operating in the same kind of like level of consciousness. And then through my own like learning and unlearning, mostly unlearning. And then once I started doing like my own healing and really like diving deep and understanding, it's like, it's not really the physical stuff that we're doing. It's like most illnesses, most cancer, most imbalances just in general, if anybody's kind of has something going on for them, it's a physical manifestation. You might be feeling it as pain, but underneath that pain, like if you really dive deep to the root cause, it's usually like a mental or emotional or energetic block. And so that's kind of been the evolution of like understanding that. And that's when the conversation started to shift, where it would be like, yeah, we look at your nutrition and we look at lifestyle, and actually like have just created programs for people to kind of like learn that at their own pace, because that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is like, what's going on for you? What's like underneath all of that, and understanding that and really starting to look at it through like, if we want to heal, we have to heal from like a different level of consciousness and bring that down. And then, I mean, it's amazing how when people are willing to do that work, how lots of things resolve, you know, physically within their health, but also like within their relationships to themselves and other people.
Yeah. Do you think that's a pretty large percentage as far as it being mental versus physical, and it just manifests into something physical? Like, is that a real thing?
Yeah, there's like statistics. So in terms of like most illnesses, not just cancer, but 80 to 90% of illnesses are actually like some form of like subconscious block. So they're not, it's not actually like physical. It's like it manifests physically, but underneath it, it's like stress in some form of stress, whether that's physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress. Yeah. And then with in terms of cancer, you know, like only 5% of cancers are actually genetic. The rest of them, the 95%, is either lifestyle or the underlying emotional or mental blockage.
Yeah. How does one find out? How does one go about digging into that to even find out what their block is?
Well, that's with this bioresonance device that I use. I mean, before it was like a lengthy process of like psychotherapy that I would use with people. It's like developing rapport and building trust and like kind of getting this like gentle unfolding of our relationship, of like asking questions to the point that they were ready. And now with the resonance device that I have, it's just like it cuts through all that bullshit. It's like, here's what's happening for you. And so it's like taken 6 months of my coaching into like a handful of sessions to understand like the underlying root causes.
Wow.
And then we can do that work, right? Then we can like dive deep.
Yeah. What are the steps that someone would need to take? So, somebody's enduring something, we figure out some sort of a block. What is the steps to healing? I mean, is that books, reading, meditation, yoga, getting injected with frog poison?
No, that's my least favorite. Oh, that's the worst, that one. So, I mean, typically we like enter gently. We sort of foray into the deeper stuff. And so most people, depending on where they're at, you know what I mean? Because every time, like when I work with somebody, it's all very individual. It's like unique to them. And so I meet them where they're at. So if somebody's like further along in their journey in terms of like understanding what it means to eat healthy and take care of themselves, then we might dive deeper into the other stuff sooner. I would say most people, though, it's like starting with the basics, drinking more water, starting with nutrition, because it's like, it's an easier access point where they feel like they can get behind it. Most people don't want to dive into their shadow work like in session 1. So usually what we do, and for anybody that's in like a state of cancer or dis-ease within their body or their mind, like a detoxification is necessary. So we usually go through like a full detox first to like kind of clear out the toxins. And when I say toxins, like mostly physical, but also mental and emotional, right? And when you do a detox, a lot of that stuff comes up. And so understanding, when those are coming up, like working with somebody that understands that, you can work through it. So that after that point, then they're like open. They have all this spaciousness in their body, in their mind, in their hearts, right? And then you can start to kind of peel back the layers and really help them. Like I'm all about building energy awareness. What is happening within your body? What's happening within your mind? What's happening within your soul? And like really kind of guiding people to understand that about themselves, because that's where their healing is going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask about the frog.
Yeah, let's talk about combo. That's called combo.
One.
Well,
I hear it's all the rave down here in South Florida. Go to Costa Rica or one of those, Brazil, I don't know, and get some frog poison injected in you. Yes. They have the scars and everything. It's like Brandon Chadwick. It's like getting tattooed.
Yeah, I have some. Okay, so combo, there's a particular type of frog that they extract this, what we would call like a frog poison. It's essentially a poison that they extract. And then when you go in a ceremony and you sit in a ceremony, they basically burn holes in your skin. And then they apply the frog medicine. And so once it's applied, it's like almost instant. You feel this like wave of just like heat. And then like prior to that, they actually have you drink like 3 liters of water. So then you just puke your guts out for like 20 minutes straight. And in between the puking, they have you drink more water. And so you're just like you're purging a whole bunch. Now, somebody that's really experienced, like a shaman that's really experienced, I mean, I don't know, he could tell like looking in your bucket what's happening for you. So for me, when I did mine, it was like, this is really gross, but it was like green and like dark, and he's like, oh, that's childhood stuff right there, where like a lighter color might be something a little bit more recent, but mine was like all darkness apparently. And then depending on the ceremony they use, so that happens for 20 minutes, and then they have you go and rest, and then they put these like eye drops in your eye that make it feel like you're burning your eyeballs out and you're never going to see again. But then after like 10 minutes of that, you have to just surrender. It's like the whole thing is a process of surrender and trust in this experience. And then once your eyeballs are no longer burning, you open and everything's like clear. And then the last part, and this isn't always offered, but they'll administer a hape or rape. And so they put like tobacco up your nose. Wow. And then you puke your guts out some more. And then after, you feel fantastic.
The tobacco up your nose, how do they do that? Are you sniffing that?
Well, there's like this kind of like a pipe, but it's like two-sided pipe. And so you put it up your nose and then they put the medicine on the inside and then the shaman will blow from the other side. And so it goes right up into your nose. I mean, it's like clears out your pineal glands. Yeah.
Does it come out like when you're puking, like snotting and puking and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, depending on the person, I definitely like had to blow my nose and it's like all this black stuff is coming out. And then I purged even more. And I like definitely in one of them when I was purging, like I felt like I was purging like childhood trauma, you know, like I felt like it was coming up. It felt like darkness leaving my body.
wow.
But it's not my favorite. That's not my favorite one because it's so like intense, you know, and the vomiting is not my favorite.
So intense. What's your favorite?
San Pedro.
Okay, what's that?
Which is called Wachuma. It's a cactus. And it's just really gentle. Like it's gentle and it's extremely heart opening. So it's like just expansiveness of love.
Is there more burning and rubbing of poison?
No.
You
just like you can drink a tea or you can just take the powder, or if you have like a fresh San Pedro, which is not generally how it's administered, but if you had access to it, then yeah, you could probably just eat it.
And then
but you never know how much you're getting, right? If you do it that way.
Okay. So. And then that also cleanses your system, but just not so aggressively.
Yeah, I would say it does less detoxing. It's more expansive, that medicine. And that's like my favorite one to work with clients, especially if they're not so in tune with their emotions or if they feel like emotionally blocked. Because, you know, if somebody has a lot of trauma, then they have like heart walls built up. You know, we develop these like protective mechanisms around our heart and around ourselves. And it can be really hard for them to like kind of just open up. It's not like it just goes away, you know? And so the medicine sort of weaves in there and it kind of like gently opens your heart so that you feel more love in the heart space. And like my favorite is to work with microdosing. I mean, I think like larger doses where you have a psychedelic experience can be insightful, but if you want long-term change, it really happens through like kind of slowly over time. So the microdosing is really my favorite, especially if somebody's in a state of illness.
Can you fully function with that?
Yeah, it's a microdose, so you don't feel like there's like a subtle perceptible difference, but I mean, you can function in your day normally.
That's cool. I have a comment from Catherine. Can you read this?
I think people tend to forget or ignore the fact that we are not just a machine, but a living soul made of emotions and memories and thoughts that affect our whole being. Yes, exactly. And the medical model is still stuck in this like mechanistic view of you have this going in your and like just take cancer, for instance, like, oh, you have a tumor. Let's like cut it out or poison it or burn it. Right. Rather than understand, like, why is it there in the first place? And how do we reverse it? Right. Because I've seen that with my clients working in holistic oncology. I've seen them reverse their cancers and not have that anymore. Not through those means. Right. And so, yes, absolutely. We're not machine. We're very
without
holistic.
Having to cut it out.
Yeah.
Just healing it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Or there's other like frequency technologies that you can use too that are like terahertz level and they shrink the tumor, which is great because especially if they are having pain or like it's like impinging on something, it's great to be able to reduce it. But really like the changing of mind, body, and spirit it can definitely just go away.
How do we know the difference between a cancer that we have caused ourselves? Like in Florida down here, skin cancer is really big because of the sun. Mm-hmm. And a cancer that is more what you're talking about, inset from childhood or from just trauma in general that's manifested into something that's grotesque.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that we can necessarily discern because it's like we usually, especially by the time we've reached our midlife, we've had many experiences, right? And so really like I think they say in a given lifetime, you develop in reverse cancer like 8 times. It's probably higher now at this point in time. So at some point, we have cancer cells going on in our body, right? And so it's really like quite often there's like a traumatic thing that happens. So maybe there's like a death or a divorce or something happens that is like a trigger for the cancer to start growing, more like proliferating. But quite often it's like multifaceted. It's like multiple things happening such that then it takes hold.
Okay, so that makes sense. And then being in an atmosphere such as maybe the sun quickens it, or
yeah, I mean, I have my theories about that. I think it has more to do with people being vitamin D deficient and then also using like sunscreen.
I've heard this whole sunscreen thing. This is a whole thing down here of people saying no sunscreen and people saying, oh my God, sunscreen, yes. How are you supposed to know?
I mean, you'll never really know. That's just my
so
theory.
Confusing. Okay, wait, I'm going to write this down. Vitamin D deficient. So make sure I'm getting lots of vitamin D.
Yeah.
Okay. And
which you can achieve, especially in Florida, is like, 15 to 20 minutes in direct sunlight in like the middle of the day.
And then just screw sunscreen. Just throw that shit out the window.
I mean, do I want to put this out on the internet? I don't know. Me personally, we never use any.
That is great.
But when we first moved here, it's like you want to build up the tolerance. And so, we would spend like 20 minutes in the sun and then we would get it and then we would go in the shade. And then over time you build up like your skin can handle that. And so, yeah. And then also having things like, if we happen to go out and we're in direct sunlight for like 2 hours and we come home when we're a little bit pink, then I put arnica on us, which is a homeopathic. And it like the next day there's no sunburn. It's just eased it. So
that's
great. But yeah, if you definitely I would definitely research it if you feel inclined.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about this pivot that you took, because we've got quite a few people watching live right now. By the way, thank you for being here watching live. For those of you watching on the replay, if you could hashtag replay wherever you are watching us at so that we can send you some love. If you are here watching live or on the replay, if you could share this video wherever you're watching us at so we can get more eyes and more ears on this content and Andrea and her awesomeness, that would be fantastic. But what I want to ask you is, there's so many individuals, and I'm sure you get this all the time, of people just having these dreams, having these aspirations, having this vision of what they want their life to look like. And then fear stops them, finances stop them, fear stops, whatever, from taking that leap into a huge pivot, right? To go from America to Costa Rica with no shoes on, that's a huge pivot. Like that's not like working at Google and then going to Microsoft. Like this is different. What do you have? How were you able? I mean, obviously your spouse was supportive, that helps. But you're a mother, you have kids. Like there had to have been some cognitive dissonance that was happening within you of, I don't know if this is the right thing. How were you able to conceptualize that? What did you have to believe? What limiting beliefs did you have to get rid of to just like, as you were saying, just kind of surrender to the process of, and just let's check it out. Let's see.
Yeah. I mean, I think on a personal level, I've always kind of been a bit of a free spirit. And so being in the medical model and being like, I mean, I think those were the things that, we're kind of programmed to like think that that's what we want and that's what we should do. And so even like I was questioning that at many points in my 20s, right? And there were many times like when I finished my first degree, I was like, went backpacking in Europe for 6 months and my parents were like, shouldn't you get a job? And so I kind of already had that, in me. So it's not that surprising. Like when I told people, I'm going to quit my job, we're going to move to Costa Rica, they're like, of course you are. So there's like, definitely I have that in me. Now my partner had never lived anywhere outside of the province that he was born in, right? By the time we met, I had lived in
Canada.
Yeah. I had lived in multiple provinces. I had lived in England, I had worked in England and I had traveled a lot. And so it was like, I think in my mind, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a leap. Now, I'd never lived in another country where the language is different. And so that was challenging because the cultures, they're like so pura vida here. It's like, we'll just like do it tomorrow. Or you go to the bank and they bring a friend because it takes like 3 fucking hours to do anything at the bank. And so, and we're like so used to like, we want to get in and out of the bank, you know? So it's like lifestyle is different. And so people need to factor that in, right? But I think if somebody has that desire in them, then do it for yourself to like at least explore that, right? And so if you can make it happen, like just go for like even 1 month or 2 months or 3 months and just see. Because I think sometimes we think the grass is greener on the other side. Like I can't tell you how many people I've seen over the last 8 years in Costa Rica come and they're like so enamored and like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. The jungle is so beautiful. I want to live here. And then they like sell everything and ship all their stuff down here. And then they discover that it's like, actually it rains 8 months of the year here. And they don't like that because everything molds and doesn't dry out. And so there's like, you know, I think it's good to explore your options, maybe not doing it. So, like, I mean, for us, we were like, we sold everything. But for me, I knew like if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have followed through all the way. If I had left stuff in Canada, we would have come and had our little thing. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go back and, you know, make money again. So I think it depends on the person, to be honest. I think for me, I needed to cut ties and really just take that leap. But when you do, I mean, I never felt freedom like when I like quit my job and then like left on the open road, you know, and we just like everything we owned was in that minivan. And it just was like, wow, all that burden of all that stress and all like the 2 cars and the house and the things, it's just like all that was gone. And so, and, you know, and I would say like even our lifestyle here is pretty simple.
Yeah, that's great.
So I would say lead from the heart and not from the head, you know?
Yes. Andrea took a leap. 100. Did your parents do anything as far as creating you to be so free-spirited? Does that come from someplace or is that you?
Everybody in my family still lives in the same place. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like a bit of an alien in my family. Very different than most of my family is very, you know, 3D, we'll say, without being super like not judgmental. That's just that's what they're in and that's what they feel comfortable in. You know, my brother says to me all the time, he's like, I could never do what you want to do. But I know that like on sub level, he's like, oh, I wish I could do that.
That's
you know?
what I'm saying.
Yeah. And so, even when I quit my job, people were like, oh my God, that's crazy. I could never do that. Right. And I was like, well, you could if you really wanted to, but it's not for everyone either. Right.
Yeah. Catherine asks, what was the number one struggle you faced moving to a new country?
Definitely language. I mean, I did not speak Spanish when I first came here, and it was a bit of a barrier, especially when we came, because we moved to a really small town, very rural, not a lot of expats. And so most people didn't speak English. So that was probably the biggest struggle. And also it's like, I mean, you just get screwed all the time because they see that you're, you know, a foreigner and they just assume that you have a lot of money. So.
Got it. Yeah, I've heard of that, like the white tax.
Gringo tax.
Gringo tax. Okay.
Yeah,
my fiance lived in Peru for not quite a year. And he said that he would have, his girlfriend at the time was Peruvian, and she would have to do all the shopping and she'd have to order the food at the restaurants and he'd have to like go to the bathroom during or when the check was coming or whatever it was, because they'd get charged more if he was the one that was presenting he's like, nothing has prices like in the touristy type, safer type areas, because they'll just charge you whatever they want. It's interesting.
It's a thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have another question. Do you only focus on cancer or do you help with other physical ailments too? I know a lot of people struggling with autoimmune disorders.
I don't only focus on cancer, and really a lot of autoimmune disorders are very similar to cancer in terms of their like underlying root causes. So although I started in cancer alchemy and that was kind of my main niche for many years, I would say in the last 3 years, especially as I have transitioned more into like frequency focused therapy. Most of my clients don't have cancer. They have other things that are going on for them, whether they want to do like more personal transformation or deal with their trauma. So doing like through psychedelics or using the frequencies. So yeah, absolutely. I'm a holistic health practitioner, so I'm really trained to work with anybody. And again, it's very unique for that person. So it's really meeting them where they're at and understanding their wants and needs rather than me just saying like, hey, you should do all these things. It's really like having these deeper conversations to understand what really is like going on for them and what they need support with or what they want support with.
Wow, that's great. I want to ask, as we start to wrap up here, we have quite a few people watching live right now, and I'm sure even more on the replay as we're kind of coming to an end here. Who exactly do you work with? Obviously, people are resonating with you. They're loving your story. They're appreciating what you do. Who should be contacting you? Who should be reaching out to you? What kind of humans do you help?
I help humans that want to help themselves, which is awesome. If you're looking for more empowerment, and you want to have the tools and the strategies, you want to understand yourself better, you want to learn more about any of the things that I had said that really kind of piqued your interest, or you're curious to learn more, then we should have a chat.
That's great. Where do you hang out at on social media, by the way, the most?
I have a Facebook group called All Things Frequency. Obviously, I have the Andrea page on Facebook. I have on Instagram. I have Cancer Alchemy. My main one is actually called Jungle Mama. That's where I post most of my stuff. So, and then obviously I have my website, canceralchemy.com. And then I have another website called allthingsfrequency.com. And that's a membership. So people that want to learn more about this kind of deeper, more expansion of consciousness, there's a membership area. So we have an amazing community there. It's growing.
Cool. What is the main group for men and women? Because although this is all predominantly women, there are a couple of men that watch. Mm-hmm. So what would be like a main one that I can put on the screen right here as far as...
Let's go with allthingsfrequency.com.
All Things Frequency. Oh, this is really testing me. .com?
Yeah.
Not awful. Allthingsfrequency.com.
You got it. Yes.
Yes, girl. Who's the winner of the spelling bee today? I love it. What are your big dreams for your business? Where are you heading?
I want to run retreats. I want to have a healing center that's all like frequency based. You could come and you want to lay on a frequency bed or run frequencies or hang out in nature. That's kind of my long-term vision, is to have a space and a healing space, and just not even just a healing space, like a health space.
Yes. Would you do this out of your, like, create your home on more land and build out, or have an actual standing location where people go?
Yeah, I think maybe it might be an evolution of like having a business, but then long term I would like to have more land with like a waterfall and water and
I want to like live on my place where I do retreats.
Yeah.
Like I want to have
and like grow food and grow medicines and have the animals.
That's so cool. Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do. I mean, it's so innate. Like I think that altruism has been there for, since I was a teenager. And definitely I do what I do now because I've had that experience in mainstream medicine. So I feel so strongly about what I do now. I'm so passionate about what I do. And my clients get amazing results. And so every day I'm motivated to just continue on my path.
I love it. I so appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, sharing some awesomeness and some cool stories. So appreciate that. As we wrap up, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts are, we have so much more power than we're led to believe that's inside of us, and we just need to cultivate that. And when we can do that and we can get so centered with ourselves, then like anything is possible. Your dreams can come true. You can manifest whatever you want, whether it's physically or in your life. So
That's great.
Just like plant that seed.
Yes. Do these websites have your social media, by the way? So if somebody goes on them, they can find you on Facebook or something? Okay, cool. Because sometimes people don't like to just like straight out reach out. They like to kind of like hover and check you out. So I want to make sure that they have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just reach out, send a message. I'm very open.
I love it. For those of you watching live and on the replay, if you resonated with Andrea and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you connect with her on her websites here. There's also one above her head area. And it's also in the description below. So if you kind of scroll up or down or side, there is a clickable link you should be able to click on. We love it to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure that we all continue to rise. And thank you, Andrea, for being here, for hanging out with us on the Her Version podcast. This community is expanding every single day, and it's filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're at. Make sure you follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share, make sure you reach out to me at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As always,